Alright guys, this is part 5 of my tutorial series working with the Blender exporter tool created by user Boo342. So let's just dive in. Here we go. Alright, so we're back. Alright everybody, welcome to part 5 of the Blender to N64 tutorial series. And it's been over a year now since I did the last video, so I do apologize for leaving you all hanging, but finally back, and we're gonna go through this, and it's all step by step. So in part 5 today, we're going to be essentially completing the series, and in the end, by the end of this video, you're going to be having this robot walker that you guys have created in the last video, and it's going to be running on the Nintendo 64 with the 2 animation sequences that we created, the idle and the walk cycle. So pretty awesome. And we're going to go through the last stages, the different steps and the different tools that we need to use in order to successfully have it run on the N64 console. So you should have gone through to File on Blender here. Should have gone to File and Export, and exported the .s64 extension file. So you should have that. I'm going to minimize this now, and we don't necessarily need to go back to that because we have our file that we need. So as well, in the last video you used the Chorizo program that Boo provided for us, and that tests your animation, your exported file and the animations, as well as applying the textures to it and then creating a special textures definition file. We will go into needed files here, and here is our S64 formatted file. Now this is the file for my Blender model. Now you might just have it called robot, and that's fine. So now let's just look at my 5-step process file here that I provided you guys. This is like a little graphic. And this is a link for this is in the description, so you should have had this. If you don't, you can check the links in the description for it. We're going to zoom in here a little bit. Okay. So, what is it that we're looking at here? So, videos, well, video 1, we went over the entire process, so you guys are somewhat familiar with this. We did everything in video 1, it was very brief. Videos 2 to 4, we went in and recreated our Blender model of the robot, and we exported it to the .s64 formatted file, and that's the plugin that Boo342 has created for us. It's all part of this package that he's created, which is just awesome. And then in the last video as well, in part 4, we opened up Chorizo just as I showed you guys, and we created our little texture definition file. Now today, in today's video, this is where we're at. We're going to be using the command line tool, arabiki64.exe. And again, I briefly demonstrated this in the first video, but today we're going to be running this, and the whole point of this little tool is to create the robot model.h source code file, and that essentially contains the display lists for our N64 model that we're going to be including within our sample source code ROM project here that Boo has also provided it for us. Now he has his own model here that he calls Catherine MDL for the model, and then the texture file. He has that included as part of his. And we can take a look at that. But I had that running in the first video. That was sort of like the default model that I had running. And so you can go and check that out if need be. But in today's video, we're going to be replacing those files with our own. So we'll have our own model, our own 3D model that we've created here in Blender, this robot, and as well all the textures. So let's, we're going to open up Arabiki64.exe, and we're going to be able to export this. This software package is so awesome. Just wanted to take a moment here to thank Boo342 for creating this, because it is so great. And the fact that we're at the stage now where today we're going to be getting our model that we've spent so much time, and because I threw a monkey wrench into this and made you guys wait over a year before you can get to this stage, unless to those of you that have gone and figured it out on your own. I'm sure there's a group of you that have done that. But for those of you that have been waiting patiently for this tutorial, you'll have to accept my apology for making you wait all this time. But again, it's just an amazing software package, and it's so cool that Boo342 has gone to the amount of work that he put in to develop this and provide this for us. Big shout out to Boo342 for doing that. Really amazing. So now, so where we're at, we're going to open up a command prompt here now, because we're going to be checking out Arabiki 64.exe. So here is my command prompt here. We'll just go down to the C now. We'll navigate to my Arabiki folder, Arabiki 64. Now do a directory list here. So there it is there. Now you should have downloaded these binaries from Boo342's GitHub, and I had links in the description for this. There was the software package, his Sausage 64 package, but he also had a separate link in there for the binaries that he compiled for us. So and that's these executables here. Now it's probably a good idea, because Boo342 over the past year, he's updated a lot of the tools, including his exporter tool. So you don't have to, but it might be a good idea if you haven't, if it's been a while since you installed that exporter Python script that he had made for Blender. It might be worth your while to go and just replace the one that's currently installed and install this new updated version. He has gone in and repaired some bugs and fixes there that were needed and outstanding. So it's probably a good idea. And then you have everything is the updated version. And so there's a specific command that we got to run if we want to export that file. So I've got an Arabiki file here that's going to show us the commands. Now you can just type the help if you want to list all of the commands. Just type in the name Arabiki and it should provide that, but we have them here. And the command that I ran initially in the first parts of the videos, I had different names assigned to my models and the exported file and all that. But in today's video, this is the command that we're going to be running. So this is based on the files that I currently have. So we'll just copy this, and we're going to go ahead and paste that in here. Oh, whoops. Paste. Okay. And so here we go. We have Arabiki 64 to activate the program. -T parameter here. The arguments that we're using is for our texture definition file. So whatever file that you, the name that you chose to assign for that texture definition, you insert it here. Then F, and that followed by our S64 formatted file. So yours could just be robot.s64, that's totally fine. This was the last revision that I created, was this low poly robot 023.s64. And then -n, that's the name that we're assigning our overall robot model within the source code. So that's just whatever name you choose to use. I used robot MDL, and you can do the same. That's totally fine. And then -o is the output file. So this is the source code file that we're creating, and we're going to be incorporating this file once it's generated after we hit enter here, and we're going to be incorporating that into our Sample ROM project with all the source code files for this N64 ROM that we're going to be compiling. And then we're going to load that onto either an emulator for N64, or if you have a flash cartridge like the 64 drive or the EverDrive 64, you can load it on that and then boot it up on the N64 console. Real hardware. That's what we want to do, right? Anyhow, so now that we have all this, if you've inserted in all the proper names for your files and you have it already, we hit enter here. But now before we do that, I'm going to bring up the Arabiki folder, and here it is here, and that has all the files that we displayed here. This is the folder here. So now again, just before you actually run this, before you hit enter, it's good to make sure that you have those files local within the Arabiki 64 folder on your C drive, right? So if you download the Arabiki exe and you copy it into C Arabiki 64, just make sure you have a copy of your final S64 robot model as well as the texture definition file. Just copy them over in there, and then you don't have to worry about you know, putting in any folder paths for your files. So once that's done, we just hit enter, and there, oh, what the, oh damn, wow, oh shit, sick. Okay, so as you guys can see here, okay, so Boo342 has made some updates. Oh wow, okay. So as you guys can see here, wrote output to robomechmdl.h.bin and robomechmdl.h.h. Okay, I see. So because I have been away for so long, and the last time I used this was a different revision of Boo342's Arabiki 64 file. He's made some updates and improvements to this. So this is awesome. What this means, guys, here, the fact that Boo has implemented the binary file format output, an outputted formatted file for Arabiki 64 in the binary format. Wow, this is crazy awesome. Okay, so this is cool, guys, because what this means is when we're compiling our source code, because we now have the model in a binary compressed file, it means that within the source code we can dictate where that model information, that file for all the model data, we can dictate where it is stored within the ROM file when it's compiled. That is really, really cool. So if you're familiar with N64 source code, and if you've kind of looked at some of my tutorials, or if you've just been, you know, playing around with it, you know that if you have an N64 source code project, there's a file in there called the spec file. And from what I understand, now that we have this binary file, we can then go in within the spec file and provide an offset address to where we want to store that block of binary information, and it will then store that within that area of memory at that specific offset. Wow, really, really cool. Okay, so also he's added the extension, the extensions to the files. So I was adding the .h for the file, but we don't need that. So we can just actually put the name in our command here. So where I had it here, so I can remove .h here for the MDL. That is really, really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna save this. Very, very cool. Wow, I'm so excited. I keep talking about it, but wow, really, really neat. Okay, so now that likely it'll mean some changes to the source code, but that's fine. We're going to be looking at it. But now, so we have our bin file, the binary file, as well as the H version of the file. So, and then the difference with that, from what I remember, I think when you have the model the way it was before, when it was just exported as an H file, it was up to the compiler to decide where that would go in the game memory, in the ROM memory space. It might be the linker that does that. I'll have to check with Boo. But it's just really cool. This gives us way more control. It's essentially like memory optimization and just having way more control over where things go. And it's kind of interesting too, because like once you know exact, memory locations for specific information, that way when you're either using pointers or if you're, wanted to update something after the file has been compiled, you know the exact location, and you can, easily create a tool or something to go and perform an update to the ROM. Really awesome. Really cool. Okay. So if we close this down, now that we've got Arabiki, we've exported our files. So here it is here. Okay, so we have the .bin. So I'm going to actually change this because I added the H there. So we've got the binary file format and then our H file format as well. Okay, very, very cool. I'm excited. Can you tell? Okay. All right. Awesome. So now let's copy these two files. We're going to copy those over, or we'll just cut them out, and we'll put them in our needed files folder. So we had our file there. So I'm going to paste these in here. So there we've got our bin and our H file. Okay, very, very cool. All right, so I can close the command prompt down for Arabiki. And now we'll bring back our steps here, what we're doing. Okay, so we got our H file. Now it's a binary file as well. That's super awesome. Okay, and now we're going to be looking at the texture converter. So we'll briefly go over this. You should have done this already, but I think I was pretty quick in demonstrating that process. So this is the program here, so you should remember that from the other videos. And essentially all you did was you would go import image, and then you would navigate to the texture PNG files that you either make yourself or that I provided. And so if you downloaded these, you should already have them. And you should have converted these into H files. You essentially end up, you do that for each one of those, and you essentially end up with converted versions of those files, and they're all in these H file formats. So it's storing all of the hexadecimal data for those textures, right? The variable that's within this is alt panel. It's the same name as the file that's referencing all of this array of hexadecimal values, right? And so whenever you reference that, whenever our source code is calling that specific texture, it's just using the name of the file, right? And that was the whole reason that we had to do that chorizo texture definition. It's just to make sure that whenever the source code is calling a specific texture within the source code, it knows which array variable to call, right? So it knows, and it maps all the data accordingly and does it properly so that the texture loads. So that's the whole point of that. So we have each one of these. These are all the different textures converted. And then what you're going to do is combine them all into one final texture H file. And that contains all of them. So you're just literally copying and pasting all of those into one file. So that's what you need. That's another one. So if we copy this, because we're going to bring this up into our needed files folder, okay? So needed files, and we're going to paste that there. Boom. So now we have the two main files, right, that we were after. We were after the Robomech texture .h file. It stores all the hexadecimal data for all of our textures, and the model information H file. And but now Boo has also implemented the binary output file, so that's super cool. It just, again, it allows us to have a little more control over where we store our model information. Very, very cool. Okay, and we're done with Arabiki. All right, I'm excited. It's getting close. Okay, so we're done this. We've got all of our converted textures into the H file format, model text.h or whatever you decided to call it. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the Sample ROM source code demo package that Boo342 has included within his files for us. And we're going to be going in and modifying it, updating it, so that it's referencing our model, our H files, and as well as this new binary file. So we're going to have to go into the spec file, and we're going to update that as well. Okay, very, very cool. So to show you guys the difference between all of this, I'm going to open up a program called Beyond Compare, and that's going to allow us to see both pieces of source code, the two different files, side by side, and it's going to show us all the differences between the two files. Just so you know, it's going to highlight all of the lines of code that we need to update, right? Because I've already gone ahead and done this. But when we use it with this program called Beyond Compare, it's just going to give you a nice visual display of the lines that you have to worry about when you're going in to that sample ROM and updating this stage 00.c source code file. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so we're looking at the files that Boo342 provided. Now, the files that we're going to be modifying, and essentially when you're going to be compiling this, it's this sample ROM folder here, and within that you have two different versions of the source code for this little ROM that we're playing with. But depending on which one, you just have to update the files and any references to the model and the texture variables, the representation of that information, you have to go in and update. Now we're going to do it for libultra, so we'll navigate in here to the libultra package. So this is the one that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to be looking at stage 00.c. so this program Beyond Compare will allow us to see that side by side. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay. So now, as you can see here, this is the original file on the left side, which was part of Boo342's software pack. And the file is stage 00.c, right? And then here on the right side, this is my modified version of the file. So now, one thing that we're going to do, down here at the bottom, you'll notice the line number for the code representation, okay? So whenever this is the original file, so just make note of these two areas here, which it's going to indicate which line of code we're looking at, wherever our cursor is placed, okay? So essentially all that we're doing in this is that any references to the model and texture H files that were generated by Arabiki 64 command line tool, right? That's for the model. And then the texture file that was generated by the texture converter, and then we assembled all those separate textures into one single texture H file, right? What we have to do is go into this file and essentially any reference to the path, the folder path to that file for both the texture and model, we have to update it and convert it to our file and make sure that it's referencing our file and not the original file. So all of Boo342's models will reference Catherine, okay? And it'll do that for both the texture model, and as well, it does it for a particular variable that he declared, which is essentially a pointer variable, and a few other names. And so as you can see down here, here's the pointer variable that he has chosen, and he calls it Catherine. And here you can notice how it's all lowercase, all right? And there's other references where you'll see Catherine MDL, and it might have a capital, so you just have to make sure that you're using the right version, okay? The right file reference. Anyhow, so here's my version here. So anything in red is essentially what I've modified, okay? Anything in blue is a comment. So it's up to you. A few, you know, pardon me, some of the changes that I made, some of the lines I just commented out because I wanted to actually see some of the code just as a reference to remember what I was modifying. And so sometimes you'll see these comments that are placed, and then I have my modified version just underneath, okay? But as long as you go and you change and make those changes appropriately, and you only reference your file, the H file and that pointer variable, it should work just fine. Now, if you're in any, you know, if you're kind of like unsure and you're like, oh, geez, Jared, you know, I'm not as up to speed on playing with the source code that much, then you could just sort of copy what I'm doing here. Now, it depends on your experience, but I'm doing everything here step by step. Not sure which level everyone's at. So again, you can just copy what I've done here, and we're going to scroll through it here. So as you can see, I've got RoboMech text, RoboMech MDL, and then I've commented out the original two. Okay. And that here is referencing line number 13. Okay, that's where we're at here. And then we've also updated line 31, all here, right? Okay, and then mine is, depending, it might be off by a few lines, but that's the general idea. So we have that. Okay. And here is the pointer variable that's been referenced. I chose robot01, and I chose that because I figured if I decide in the future to add multiple robot models into the project files, I can easily just, you know, number them incrementally. But again, it's totally what you want to do. That's just what I decided to do. Okay. So we have modified this pointer from Catherine to Robot1. I had the float there as well, and I've uncommented all these. Now the reason I did this is because Boo342's model, his 3D model, has some functions in place for doing face animations where there's different textures that are applied to the head object in the model. Okay, so he just goes around and he's got, you know, some conditional statements in his code here, and it'll just simply modify the applied texture. So then you get like a happy face, a sad face, an angry face, etc. Now, my model doesn't worry about any of that, right? Because it's a robot. So all I've done here is just commented out anything that's referencing face animation or anything to do with modifying the textures for the face. Okay. So here I've modified all of this. This is at line 66. Now I'm just going to keep referencing my version here, but just also pay attention at the original file. So if you're like wondering where we're at, just look over here on the left side at the bottom, and you'll be able to reference where it is in comparison to the changes that I've made. Okay. So here we are at line 77 on mine. And we'll just scroll down, and I've updated this. So we've got 89, and then again we're modifying these texture variables and these assigned names. So I've just commented all these out, and then I've updated here with my texture definitions here. Okay. So that's 101. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not rocket science, but at least gives you an idea of what you have to do. So you just have to go in and make sure that you modify anything that's referencing the model and the texture. You have to update that for your version. Now here's where we assign data to that pointer variable. Okay, so we have initialize robot 1. We had initialize Catherine, right? And there he's assigning it Catherine, and then it's all being called here at different areas in his code. So you just have to make sure that all those variables are updated. So that's at line 113 on mine. Multiple references here, some more face animation variables that I've commented out. So that's at 130. And then here as well we have some more changes that we've made. That's line 146 on mine and 135 on the original. Okay. Now this whole entire function that he's got here, he's got a big conditional if statement here, and it's all relating to face animation. I've just deleted it, right? So that's why there's this big gap here. It's just showing you that. But when you actually look at the file, it won't. It'll cut that out. Okay, so that's 146. Scrolling down, we have the controller conditional statements, and that's pretty much all the same until you get here to the handle look at lerp. I've commented all that out. And now here in this function for the menu, I've made some changes here just for proper display of the menus. Okay, so I've got 3 here, his original was 4, and I've removed this parameter here and change that from 7 to 6. Continuing down. Okay, updated there as well, 229, 231, and I've erased this one case 1 statement because it was referencing face animations. And then again, I've updated the case number here, right? And made some modifications here. So as long as you're matching what I have here on the right side, you'll be okay. And you can just freeze these, pause them if you need to when you're updating your code. And you know, I could very easily have just supplied this file for you, my modified version, but I think it's important that you actually go through the grueling process of going through your, the file and updating everything, and then testing the compilation, compiling it, and getting it to work. It's good to do that. Get familiar with it. Okay. Again, referencing robot 1. And that here is on line 334, or pardon me, 344. Everything here remains the same. And then again, some variables and a for loop here that I've removed. And now here, this line here, so this is at 392 on mine and line 430 on the original file. All of these functions here are essentially dictating where the debug text is placed on the screen when you activate the debug menu to engage your different animations. And so these are just XY values of where you want to place the text. And so I've made these modifications just so that it's displayed properly. compared to the version that Boo had, because he had a lot of different you know, menu data that was in there for specifically for his face animations and changing those textures. Okay, so it goes all the way down. We got 412 there in mine, 452. And then I've commented out this case, line 425 on mine, 465 on the original. So we're commenting that one out, and then deleting this whole section here, and then updating this. We have that at line 437, 442, and then modifying this case statement here. And I've added a few of these. Now this is just so that when you're engaging a walk cycle, it'll actually repeat it a couple of times, so you can actually see it walk before it switches to an idle animation. So I've just added a few extras just so you can actually see it walk a little bit. But you can play with it. You could comment them out and just sort of recompile and check out what the changes, what happens there. And then again here, these are for the eyes. He's got a really cool function here so that the eyes always follow looking at the camera. But again, that's specifically for the default model that was in the package here. So I've removed all of that, right? So that's at line 455 on mine and 413 on the original. And remove all of that all the way down until we have the helper math functions. Okay. That's at line 458 on mine, 575 on the original. This all stays the same all the way down until we have a reference here to the pointer, 579 on mine and 696 on the original. I've updated that to Robot 01. Now, for these sections here, these are all in blue, which means this has been commented out. And you can see I've got the comment start and finish right here. So this is all commented out. Same for this function here. Now these are USB commands. These are part of Boo's, Boo 342's package that he has. He's got a really cool debug menu that he uses. It's another tools package, and anyway, these are all different functions that he's implemented, and allows you essentially to control the animations that are happening in real time from the host machine through like a debug menu. So you're sending commands to the animation in real time back through the USB cable to your development flash cartridge. Really, really cool. So, but we're not using this one because it's for the face and those textures. So that's line 613, 727 on the original, and all the way down to 637 on mine, 751 on the original. That's all commented out. Okay. And then the last part, we're updating that pointer variable again, and that's at line 670 on mine, 784 in the original, and 682 on mine, and 796 on the original. And then the last part, this whole toggle look at command here, I've just commented out because we're not using it. And so that's pretty much it for this stage 00.c source code file. And those are all the changes that we had to update. Okay, so once you do all that, you save it, right? And okay, so now the next step is for us to update the spec file within the within your source code package here. So I'm going to bring up mine. So this is where I've been compiling mine, and yours can be anywhere. It can be on your C drive, but I'll get around to that in a second. Setting up the compiler, I'll have some links for you to follow, and videos, tutorial videos that you can follow for that. But setting up the whole compiler for N64, that's just beyond the scope of this tutorial series. But I will have some links that you can follow in order to set that up, and you'd be able to compile. Okay, so now we're going to look at our spec file. Okay, and so now if we just open this up with our code here. Sip of my beverage. Sweet Heineken. I don't normally drink while I'm filming, but that's Tony and John's thing. But I figured I would bust out a beverage, take the edge off. Okay, so pretty much the only reference here that we're updating is the name that we're assigning for this segment and the folder path to our bin file, our binary file for the model. Those are the only two things you got to change, and that's it. And that again, that's when we were making the changes in stage00.c file, there were instances where we referenced robot MDL, and was essentially referencing this area, this segment of code in the ROM. And it's this file here that needs, right? Let's call them that. So you go ahead and just save that. So that's pretty much the two. It's stage00.c and the spec file that you have to modify. And once you're done that, the only other thing that you have to do, that you have to make sure that you do, is to copy over your robomech mdl.h, texture.h, as well as the binary file. So let's take a look at our needed files here. This is the folder that we have. So we have, our texture H file, the model H file, and the model binary file. Okay, so we have all those files there. So we just have to make sure that we copy these three files over to our Sample ROM project folder that we choose. So we'll move this over here just for the time being. Now, let's take a look at the original package from Boo 342. So here it is here. And so what you're going to want to do is copy over the version of the Sample ROM that you're using, whether it's libdragon, if you're going to use libdragon to compile, or libultra. Libdragon has made some crazy advances over the past few years, I think. I've never used it myself. It used to be just 2D, but now with Tiny 3D, they've incorporated into it, and it's like a lot of people are using it. It's really, really awesome. But I'm old school and I use the original. Some people say I'm nuts, but I just have stuck with the original. It's what I got used to. But it would be cool to actually dive into libdragon a little bit and test that out. A lot of people are using it. So this is the original Sample ROM. And so essentially all you're going to do is copy this whole thing, right? Copy the whole project and all the files. Okay. My mouse is driving me nuts here. And so if you had a project folder on the C drive where you're going to store all this, so as an example, we have C Sample ROM. Okay, if you declared that, you would just go to that folder and paste that in. Okay, so there's all your files. It's just a copy of the original, right? Okay, and now what we're going to do, oh, my mouse keeps clicking there. So I'm going to close this one. This is the original. And there's our needed files. Here's the new one. This is our Sample ROM. So you're gonna, whenever you're gonna compile, you're gonna navigate to C Sample ROM folder. Okay, and then all your files are here. So now we have to copy our texture H, model H, and model bin over. So we navigate over here to model subfolder, and under textures we have Catherine text, Robomech text. So you can see how I've already copied it over. Okay, so that's what you would do. You'd grab that, slide it over, copy over. Okay. And then under static, we have robomechmdl.h, so you would copy that one over. And then under binary, right, we would copy over both. So we copy the H and the bin. Just copy those right over and drop them here. Okay. So once you've done that, you are pretty much ready to go to compile. Now, depending, this ASM folder here, I talked to Boo a little bit about this, and he mentioned that these files in here are for those of you that decide to use what's called modern SDK. But if you're not, if you're just going to go with the original libultra SDK, then you don't really have to worry about it. But if you are, and you start running into problems compiling, and it might just be good to do, just so you don't have to worry about it, you just have to go in and update the folder path within these assembly files. So just take a quick look here and show you. And there you can see under assets here, we have a reference label here, Catherine segment ROM start. So you have to update this to robot, RoboMech or Robot 1, whatever you decided to use. And as well, the folder path. You make sure that that references your model name for your binary. Okay. And then update this segment ROM start, whichever the same label is used within the stage00.c. So you just have to check and validate that you got the same label here, whether it's robot segment ROM start, segment ROM end. Okay, change those, update those, save it, and then you should be fine. So that's about it. So you just update those assembly files, copy the models over, and then you update spec file and stage00.c. And then pretty much, if you go in and install the SDK for the N64, whether it be the libultra original classic SDK, or if you're using the libdragon, and as well there's the modern SDK. So it just depends on which one you want to do. For me, I just always use libultra. That's the way I've done it. And I will provide links in the description for you guys to follow to go in and properly set that up on your your host machine that you're going to use. And then it's either going to be like a you can set it up on a VM if you want, but it has to be like a Windows 98 PC when you're going to be using the old school libultra. That's the advantage of using the modern SDK, is that it can run on a more updated OS, and I think it even runs in Linux. Actually, it might only be Linux. I'm not 100% sure, but again, I've just always stuck with libultra, and I do that. I run I have like an official Windows 98 PC old school, and I've got it all set up and installed there, and I just copy this whole folder over to that machine, and then I run my make command. So that's pretty much it. But again, I'll have video tutorials that is going to show you how to go in and install the SDK. It's pretty straightforward, and it has all the links to the software, to the download links that you need. But I'll include the tutorial video that shows you how to go in and install the libultra SDK. And then once you have that done, pretty much all you're going to do after you install the SDK and you have it ready to go, you pretty much just come to your command prompt here. Okay, and this will be on your Windows 98 machine or on a VM, depending which one you choose. And then you would literally just go cd / and you would navigate to your sample ROM folder, hit enter, and then right there you would just hit make, and then you would hit enter, and it would run through the compile. Now here obviously it's not going to do it because I don't have the SDK installed on this machine. This is a Windows 7 machine that I use for doing all my tutorial stuff. But when you have the N64 SDK properly set up, it would run through that whole process of compiling. And then what you end up with, after you run that, you're going to end up with, here I'll get out of this here. We'll go to my current, this is my final project here where I have this linked to a VM, and you run that command, you end up with the N64 compiled ROM. And then you can take that and load it up in an emulator, an N64 emulator if you want, or if you have a flash cartridge, you can use a 64 drive or the EverDrive X7, the EverDrive 64 X7, and you just copy it over to the memory stick on that, pop it in, and run it, and away you go. And so let's actually do that. Let's load the compiled ROM here, and we'll check it out and see what it looks like on an N64 console. Well, 32 gigabyte micro SD card reader. This is old school. I've had this for so long. And so we just insert it there. Okay, and we'll go and check out the files here. Copy them over. A copy. And there we go. Alright, robomech.n64 on the 64 drive micro SD. Okay, so now I just right click and eject, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we're done. You just remove that, and there it is there, the old trusty 64 drive. So there we go. And I think it's actually upside down here for this one. There it is. Alright, here we go. Alright, so we're going to navigate down to my N64 dev folder, and then we're going to navigate down to robomech. There it is. And there it is there. And let's activate, and it's going to automatically load the 6102. Here we go. Boom. There it is. So now when we hit the left trigger at the top of the N64 controller, you have the debug menu that pops up, and you can select idle or walk, and when you hit the select walk and then you hit the A button, you'll engage the walk cycle. It's a pretty cool thing to have implemented, and you can show these models that you make off, to your friends. Super fun. Okay, that concludes the video today, everybody. I want to give a big shout out to my supporters. Thank you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today. It was a long time coming, I'm telling you. There was a lot of stuff going on, some family issues there I had to attend to, and so everything got put on hold, but I'm finally back to start putting content out again and try to get the consistency up. It's definitely going to be a little more raw moving forward. I'm going to try and just post more and get everybody involved and be able to see what's going on with me here in the lab, having to relocate again. So now I'm crammed back in this small space, but I'll make it work as best I can. So hopefully you guys will enjoy what's coming and what I have on the agenda. So that's it. That's a wrap. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hit the like and subscribe if you can. It is always appreciated. And we will see you in the next video. Take it easy, and bye for now. Ciao.